He had some pretty strong views on something you probably do as well, Brad, and that's the sub rule.
For some unknown reason, he was always within the 23, but we've got to name people out of the 23 for God knows what reason. I'm not too sure. So it'd just be nice if the AFL could do something about that so it doesn't create a big story, if that makes sense. I think it's ridiculous that we've got to do it and we need to get it fixed. It's farcical that we've got to do it, really.
Now, you've been through something similar with Dyson Heppell in a different situation, and you spoke the other day of the AFL not being keen to change the rules because it's going to cost some money. In fact, here's Dyson Heppell learning that he's being subbed out. Was that a bit of a bad way to find out?
No, well, I mean, it's difficult because you don't pre-plan who you're going to sub out. It's how the game's going. I've spoken to the players at length about, you know, we're obviously have a lot of empathy for our players, but right in that moment, the game's going. We've got to make a decision. We've got to make it, and I'll talk to you post-game. Dyson handled that extremely well, but the surprise for him there was that the wrong person told him. So the person who was supposed to tell him didn't, and then the person who threw him the shirt thought he already knew. So that's why he was surprised. But no,
you had the conversation with him later.
Couldn't you just get on the phone and say, "Hey, Dyce, you all right? You got access to the phone, having down to the..."
Yeah, I've got higher priorities at that point in time.
Just on the...
But getting back to the sub rule, yeah, I mean, if you don't mind me saying, you coaches, you wanted the Medi sub or the concussion sub, and then you wanted it to be a full-time sub, and now you don't even want a sub, you just want an extra player. Is this where we've been pushing all along? And now you're complaining about rules.
Be careful about the you coaches, Caroline, otherwise we'll talk about you journos and all of you. Look, I think there are always different views on the sub, so the AFL were fairly proactive in asking. The Medi sub was an issue, and I think everyone thought that. So the options went out: do we have 23 just with 5 on the bench, or do we have a tactical sub? And the majority of clubs came back with a tactical sub, which surprised me at the time because I thought 5 on the bench was the way to go. So we're just dealing with the rules as they are. Everyone's got a different opinion.
And just very quickly on Damien and also your comments yesterday, could you not just say out Heppell bracket sub or out Cochin sub? Does that make it a little bit simpler?
Yeah, I think that, you know, we'd prefer that if they were the rules, but unfortunately they're not. We've got to, you know, for us to, we would have had to have named Dyson out, and you know, Damien would have had to have named Trent Cochin out, which creates an unnecessary story. And when we're talking about players' livelihoods and, you know, getting dropped is a big deal, and then they have to deal with the fallout from that. So,
but you're allowed to say it's a sub.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think we should have to deal our hand to the opposition when they're not declaring it to us either. So if it's the same for everyone, no problem.
Just want to get back to Richmond. Hutchie, it feels like we've spoken about this each and every week, but it was confronting how they were beaten around stoppage, and this is not what they would have wanted. So I want to highlight some of the names in these centre bounces, and these are just 3 examples, but it was a smashing in there with Taranto and Hopper. So these are 2 players that I think they've sold their future for, with 4 first-round draft picks plus 2 7-year contracts, Hutchie, and it's not getting the result that they would have desired. If they're not winning clearance, it's a little bit like Alistair Clarkson's decision to sub out Cunnington. If they're not winning stoppage, they're not offering you much else around the ground. So we're 4 games in, I understand that, but these are the numbers.
They're calling this a 7-year sitch, which is the equivalent of the 7-year itch. Are we having this type of dialogue around them if they're signed for 3 years or 4 years or 2 years?
I just couldn't believe the 7-year deal, as you know, and it's probably not going to be Damien Hardwick's problem because it's unlikely he's going to be there for these deals to expire. But it was a strange choice, and they haven't got the return. You can see the numbers there. They're kicking 17th in the competition, and Hopper and Taranto both poor kicks. So, and also the fact that Martin and Bolton get pushed out to allow those players the time in the midfield. So, Caro, Tigers have got some challenges.